I just want to say to everybody here that I give you a lot of credit for coming. I know that when I was having my problems, I wouldn't talk to anybody about it because I thought I was the only person in the world with this problem. But as you can see, there are a lot of people with the same problem. It's a couple's problem. It's really something that has a solution if you know where to look and where to go, and you've done exactly what you need to do to find that solution. So here's my story. 10 years ago, when I was 58, I went to the doc for my normal PSA, and my normal PSA was 3.1. Went back 6 months later, had a PSA of, my normal PSA was 3.1. Went back 6 months later, and my PSA was 6.4. Had a biopsy done. Has anybody here had a biopsy done? You know how much fun that is, right? Anyway, everything came up negative. Figured I'm in the clear. 6 months later, went back, had a PSA of 10.4. Biopsy. One spot in the biopsy turned out to be positive. Doctor said, Mr. Pollock, this is a very, very slow-growing cancer. You've got 5 years to make up your mind whether you'd like to have surgery, radiation therapy, seed implants, all kinds of things. Went home, talked to my wife, and I said, you know, why wait around? I just want to get rid of this and let it be gone and not be an issue for me to have to worry about. Had the surgery, and after the surgery, went back to the doc and said, okay, I'm really feeling great now. Want to start having some intercourse again. And he said, okay. And I wasn't getting erections at that point. He said, okay, we're going to put you on some of the pills. So they put me on Viagra. I took Viagra, didn't work. Took Cialis, didn't work. Took Levitra, didn't work. Something I never thought I'd say to my wife was, not today, honey, but I got a terrible, terrible headache. They gave me such bad headaches, those pills, that I couldn't pick my head up off the pillow. They were just terrible. Went back to the doc and said, this is not working. And he said, okay, I have a great solution for you. It's called an external vacuum pump. Gave me a prescription for it, went down to the medical supply store and got it, and used it. And it worked fine. Couple of issues I had with it. Number one, if you're going to be with your wife and you're having any kind of pre-sexual playing around, you've got to stop. You've got to run into the bathroom or next to the bed, grab this device, pump up, put a little tourniquet on the end of the penis so that it keeps the blood in. It worked okay, but it was not spontaneous whatsoever. Your penis gets bluish, it gets cold, it also gets kind of floppy because you've got this tourniquet on that's holding in the blood and it's flopping back and forth. And then the issue of taking off the tourniquet, after a while it just became something I wasn't interested in anymore. It just became too cumbersome. And then what happened to me is I went into this major state of depression because here I am. I couldn't do what I needed to do as a man. I couldn't please my wife. I could not have intercourse with my wife. And I went into this major, major depression. Didn't know about anything else that was available. Luckily, like you, I got a letter in the mail that said, if you're having these kinds of problems, come to a seminar. So I came to a seminar just like this. They talked about the pills, knew about those. They talked about the vacuum pump, I knew about those. And they talked about these suppositories called mousse, little pellets. I wasn't too keen on that. And then they talked about, okay, we got something that works great, it's penile injection. And of course, if you're a diabetic, it's the same size little needle. People who are diabetics are used to sticking themselves. I'm not diabetic, and the concept of sticking a needle in me just wasn't something I was interested in doing. So they discussed the implant, the 3-piece implant. And my wife and I went home, talked about it, and on my 60th birthday, which was 2 years after my prostate surgery, the day after my birthday, I went into the hospital as an outpatient and had the surgery done. That is the second best thing I ever did in my whole life. That's the first. I will tell you, if it was not for that seminar and this implant, I really probably would not be here speaking, because I just didn't feel that life was worthwhile anymore, because I just couldn't do what I was supposed to do. Surgery went very, very easily. I went in on what's called a 24-hour surgery, went in on Friday night, came home on Saturday, and really didn't have any pain at all. I had a lot of discomfort, but nothing that 2 Advils wouldn't take care of. My biggest problem was I sleep on my side. And after the surgery, your testicles swell and they turn black and blue. And when you sleep, if you're a side sleeper, you know that your legs come down together. So the biggest thing you have to learn how to do is put some pillows between your legs so that you don't mash your testicles and you're up all night. Once I figured that out, it was fine. I went back to work after 2 weeks. I have basically a sedentary job. I really didn't have much of a problem. I was still a little sore, so I would sit on the edge of the chair for another week or so. I did finally buy a donut and sat on a donut. After the 4th week, I went back to the doc, and he said, okay, Cliff, I want you to start to learn how to use the pump. Now, I want you to learn how to use it, but I don't want you to use it for another week to actually have intercourse. So, this is the pump. This is the size of the whole thing. It does not come with a metal ring. That's for your keys. But this is the size of the pump. And what's really nice about it is you can have your foreplay and you just reach down and you just pump it a few times. And when you pump it, the liquid from the reservoir goes through into the cylinders and you get this fantastic erection. And like the doc said, you can leave it up for 4 minutes, 4 hours, 40 days, 40 years. It's not going to make a difference. It's not going to hurt you at all. So you don't have to worry about having to run to the hospital in case you're up and have an organ, a priapism for more than 4 hours. It's not going to hurt you. Of course, walking around with an erection for 4 hours and going to work is kind of not too cool. But after 6 weeks, we started having intercourse again. Everything worked like a dream. I've had it now for 8 years.
And after the surgery, it took about 2 years until we knew the ED was going to be permanent. But during that time, we were still able to be physically intimate. Cliff was able to have an orgasm without an erection. I was able to have an orgasm without his erection. I thought, this is going to work fine. We can do this. But that's because I was looking at the whole sexual experience from my feminine perspective and not from the male perspective. And what I learned, at least for Cliff and me, the difference between us as male and female is that what I wanted was to feel intimate. It didn't matter to me how we got there or how we did it. But for Cliff, His functionality, his ability to have an erection and to have intercourse is what defined him and his sexuality. And so when we decided to go ahead after one of these seminars and have the implant done, and everything went very, very well, and when we started what had been a normal sexual experience for us, able to have intercourse again, it was only then that I really realized that we had lost a lot of intimacy in those years that he wasn't able to have an erection. And he was different. He was himself again. And I didn't even realize what I was missing until we had our more normal kind of sexual relationship back again. So for both of us, this was a very, very good resolution to an issue that was important to both of us, his function as a male and my intimacy with him as his wife. And I would say nothing negative about our experience in the last 8 years. His functionality and the equipment just works beautifully. And Cliff is right. You know, he has an artificial knee, so when we go to the airport and he gets scanned, you know, buzzers go off and he has to go aside and be wanded. But with this, there's no metal in it, and so it doesn't have any problem going through the airport or being x-rayed or anything else. It's a very, very private unit, if that is the way you wish to keep it. And other than that, I wouldn't want to do it again because I wouldn't want to go through the cancer. But if we were going to go through this again in terms of the implant, that would be fine with me, absolutely fine. And now if any of you have any questions, either for us or Dr. Bano, please feel free to ask.
I got a question about, I'm going to call it the pumper dick. When it goes in the whatever it goes into, is it like retarded looking? I mean, like one side big and the other?
Absolutely not.
It looks just like your normal.
It looks exactly like a normal erection. The one nice thing, yes, the one nice thing about it is it adds some girth, so you become a little wider. That's about it. Now, some people say to me, well, if you keep pumping it, will it get you bigger and bigger and bigger? The answer is no. They are fitted for you. The doctor fits you for it. And there are times that you may lose a little length. I know I lost a little length because of the prostate surgery. I lost about 1/4 of an inch. But my reality is I'd rather lose 1/4 of an inch and be able to have intercourse and erections than worry about 1/4 of an inch and not be able to function. So there's a great trade-off there. 1/4 of an inch, I don't know if that makes a difference. A lot of the people I speak to, a lot of the women I speak to say that it's not the length so much as the girth that really makes a difference. So I have not had a problem. Of course, I've been with Marilyn. We've been married 46 years. I'm 68. I met her when I was 14. She's the only person I've ever been with. But from what I hear and speaking to people, the girth issue is much more important than the length issue. But the penis looks exactly like it did when when you were normal.
Flaccid. He is not erect at this point, so you would not know if he was in a locker room that he had an implant. Okay. So he's reaching down right now to his pump, which, as Cliff mentioned, is implanted in your scrotum. It's almost like having a third testicle. So by simply pumping the bulb, which you guys can come over and I'll show you this at the end of the seminar, he's just going to get an erection. And his penis, to your question, looks exactly like it did without the implant. It just fills that anatomy that your blood normally fills to have an erection.
I will say that being flaccid, you can be less flaccid than what that video shows you. In other words, you can be exactly as flaccid as you were before. And the way you do it is after you release the fluid, if you just hold the button and then just hold your penis for a second and just squeeze a little.
So yeah, he's going to release his fluid now, and all of that fluid goes back and sits in the reservoir, and you do not have an erection anymore.
After 6 weeks, I don't even know it's in me. It just becomes part of you. And unless I go looking for it and searching for the bulb, to pump it up, I have no idea.
What about motorcycle?
No problem at all. No problem at all. You will do everything you could do before. It's not going to stop you from doing anything.